Hello. Good morning, everyone. Just thought we'd pop on today to do our spotlight with one of our founding members, Sven. He is here to talk to us today about anxiety and how we can kind of get that sorted in our lives as quickly and efficiently as possible. He's going to be using some interesting techniques and explaining that all for us today to help us in our personal lives as well as our business. So please welcome to the screen, Sven. Hi, Sven.
Hi, Joe. I'm really excited.
It's good, isn't it? Very exciting to have you this morning on our Ambition Growth Network live stream. So, firstly, just introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are and what your company is all about. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so, well, my name is Sven. It just says it in the bottom. But I'm from East Germany originally, and I grew up under communism. I was 15 when the Berlin Wall came down, which kind of took my life apart. And if you want to know more about that part of my life, then you can watch my TEDx talk, which I was privileged to share last year. But yeah, so out of this, I fell into an emotional trauma, and 2 years ago, I started uncovering that emotional trauma by using a technique that I just basically want to share with you today, and that is also very core of my business. Business-wise, I started a company called Eyes Up Training Limited, and the idea is to help companies who go through change to help their employees to do this psychologically and not leave the company in the process by providing emotional intelligence training, where I basically try to teach people in your business exactly the same skills that I'm going to show you that I use in my life with my children, with my wife, and it's awesome.
Fantastic. It's a brilliant time to start to implement this. I think massive changes going on in the business community and the big pandemic that we've had. And again, I think a lot of us don't realise quite how emotionally it does challenge us and kind of those feelings, and it's being able to actually openly talk about them in a constructive way, isn't it? So
yeah.
Fantastic. Lovely. Really looking forward to hearing all about it today. So what got you into this in the first instance?
Well, what got me into it in the first instance was basically my own struggles with emotions. So when the Berlin Wall came down, I lost my worldview. So suddenly what I believed in was a lie. My career plan just disappeared overnight. And my parents had to reveal to me that they were under constant surveillance by the secret police, and therefore had created a kind of a double life in order to keep the family unit together. And within weeks, all those three pillars of life just vanished. And I just, I had no emotional attachment to this time. And I found myself over the years going through the same things over and over again, like emotionally, where you just do something. One of the big things that I discovered was I tried to create something or take an opportunity to move forward in life, to make a step up. And I prepared everything, and everything was exciting during the process of preparation. But then at the launch pad, my emotions just went completely crazy. And I had loads of good reasons to just basically stop doing what I wanted to do and just abort my mission. And that had basically happened over and over again in my life. And 2 years ago, I really became aware of that. And I thought, like, well, something is wrong here. Something needs to happen. And so I got introduced to a skill called emotional logic by someone. And that was basically how I could unravel my own stuff, which basically led to discovering my life story that I'm now sharing really proactively. People love my life story. I see so many people encouraged and see breakthroughs. But also I saw, having gone through employment myself and seen managers really struggle dealing with the conflict, dealing with change, dealing with managing people on an emotional level. And that's basically why I said, like, I want to invest here. I want to bring something into the business community that is so proactive. It doesn't make us counselors or therapists. It just makes us very emotionally supportive to our staff and to each other.
It makes such a huge difference, doesn't it? Because I think as industry leaders and business owners in this community, it's one of those, the last things that we think about is our mental health and our emotions and stuff that goes on outside of work, a lot of people are like, well, just don't bring it into work, but we're humans after all, aren't we? And it's not possible to just switch off when we need to switch off. And
yeah, and we have these emotions all the time. We don't realize how often we actually rely on emotional intelligence. You have an argument with your child. How do you deal with that? It's an emotional process. You have an argument with your partner. How do you deal with that? It's an emotional process. You lose your wallet. It's an emotional process. And the same goes then on into the business community. A customer just suddenly quits the relationship with you. That's what you're going to do. One of your employees, like in this season right now, says, I'm just simply not going to come to work because I'm afraid of my family. Well, that's a massive conflict of interest, but they are both emotional things. And we have never learned to really deal with those emotions in the process. And that's why it's important.
A lot of people see being overly emotional as kind of a negative thing sometimes, but actually these emotions are put in place, aren't they, to protect us, and they are natural and we all have them. I think actually just pushing them down sometimes can cause major issues later on in life, isn't it? And I'm really excited to see the process, obviously, that you use. I've personally done a bit of emotional logic myself. Your wife recommended another trainer, actually. I think it was about a year ago now, actually, so a little while ago, trying to help deal with some of my kind of personal issues that I was going through. And I found it such an interesting process. And I was like, it was something that was just so different to any other therapies or kind of understandings. I did psychology at university, so I'm quite well versed in that area, but this is just something that's so simple. I think sometimes it doesn't need to be overly complicated. It just needs to, just flow, isn't it? And understand, obviously, how to get those emotions firstly outside, because I think when you're in your headspace too much, it can kind of consume you a lot, can't it? And it kind of sometimes
I've seen for myself in this rediscovery of myself, really, like emotions for me are kind of signposts to my identity and purpose. So for me, they're actually warning signals that try to tell me, hey, Sven, you're just out of line with yourself, not necessarily with somebody else. Something is happening that either pushes me out of line or I find myself out of line. And I use emotions. Okay, I'm not waiting. Most people say, like, just find a place and just calm down. And then when it's gone, and people say, like, oh, it frees me so quickly up. But have we dealt with the situation that caused in the first place? And this is what excites me about emotional logic, that it's not just feeling. It's actually moving, using energy in motion, emotion, and using the energy and move to a better place, to move forward, I use it a lot to find myself, like to really identify more, find more clarity who I actually am. Because the more stable I became in that area, the more confident I became to communicate to the outside world about that. And and it's not about feelings, because I think we have to be careful, because we have denied feelings so long. Now people say, like, we all have to be about feelings, and I think, like, no, feelings are not about feelings. Feelings try to tell us something that we should react to. But mindset before would just say, like, oh, just mindset, just push it away. But that will, I tried, and at some point it comes out.
It does. I think it's tricky, isn't it? Obviously, in a lot of the groups and stuff that a lot of us are in, it's all about being positive. It's all about finding kind of the happy moments, etc., etc. It's almost like we've got to try and deny the feelings that we're getting, and especially the last kind of 4 or 5 months with some major life crises going on a world scale. As I said, obviously, and people are actually starting to talk about mental health and talking about fear and anxiety and pain and worry and these sorts of things that aren't normally talked about. And we're kind of, especially in England, I think we're kind of very, just put a brave face on and carry on, isn't it? But I think actually you need to talk about it, because the more we don't, as I said, obviously, the more problems we end up having, addictions, violence, all these other things that can come as a bypass of not dealing with the original issues, isn't it? So I think, dig deep, isn't it, and get it sorted, really.
And that's kind of the important part, is to actually use it properly and move forward and turn it basically into personal growth. To not think feelings is bad. No, feelings actually are not positive nor negative. At emotional logic, we say like feelings can be unpleasant, but they have a useful purpose. And and I just basically want to show just very practically how I went through one of my own situations, and just show you guys, the tools or part of the tools that we use to, show you how to unravel the situation and then really got something out of it and just quickly, moved out of the situation of just feeling, but into really a point of happiness and a point of Thanksgiving. I mean, the day I'm going to share with you, it's like the day started completely on the wrong foot, but at the end of the day, I just stood there and said, like, I'm so grateful for this day. This day is amazing. It's just, wow. It's like, what's going on?
I think sometimes, yeah, so obviously, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and when they have like crises in their life or things that have gone wrong or disappointment, or actually it's an opportunity to grow, isn't it? And I think actually if we come at it with a different perspective and look at it in a wider kind of idea to see, well, actually, how can I learn from this? What lessons is it giving me? How can I deal with it so that next time perhaps I won't feel this way, or I can prepare better? And it's getting those kind of tools on board, isn't it? The resilience, but also understanding the processes that we go through. So did you want to share that with us now? It'd be really good to.
Let me just say one thing first. One of the things that I discovered basically through COVID-19 is the similarity of time going through this crisis to my own story with the fall of the Berlin Wall. Now, initially, when the Berlin Wall came down, there was, besides that, of course, it was a major thing happening, but there was a big excitement about the world being changed. The excitement about things can change. We don't have to go back to this old way of doing things, this old stupid way. There was a big excitement about opportunity, about freedom, about growing, about opportunities and things like that. Well, after about 2 months, 3 months, people started standing on the streets and trying to fight that this process kind of slows down, because people suddenly realized that those new opportunities, they cost something. We needed to leave things behind in order to actually move into the new. We needed to stop doing things the way we did. And in East Germany, we had food security, we had job security, we had a life security on a basic level that suddenly disappeared. But in order to move forward into a more freer world, we had to leave those things behind. Now, I see the same thing with COVID-19. There was research being done at the very beginning, and it said basically that over 90% of Britons don't want to go back to normal. So, there was an excitement about, yes, something can change. But we can see now, people are, anxiety levels haven't gone down. Anxiety levels are actually still growing, and the uncertainty, is still growing. And what I know is, if we don't deal with it, I had to suffer through this for 30 years because I basically locked this whole idea away, this whole event away, and 30 years later just came up. I can't talk really to my parents. I can't talk to other family members in a sense of the time around the fall of the Berlin Wall before. I've spoken to many East Germans over time, and they tell me all the same story. And there was a national trauma, and that has never been walked through. And, and you can now see 30 years later, it still has a hold on us. And I want to prevent this with kind of helping people now to move with to deal with the now emotional tension and come out better and stronger in the other end.
So I think trauma, especially when it's on such a big scale, can be generational, isn't it? And passed down from one generation to the next. And I think actually today, with all the opportunities that we've got, all the resources that we've got, all the technology, and the way that we are being a lot more open and honest with people, maybe we can address these issues now, isn't it? So that our future generations, our kids, can have these tools to be able to communicate much more effectively, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let me show kind of this whole process. So I prepared a little screen. So Joe's going to share this with us.
1 second. Yeah. Be pressed. I'm just trying to get on here. There we go.
Yeah, cool.
Just
So, emotional logic is basically a skill that everybody can learn, um, and it's a very practical skill. The idea is to actually move, to move forward, to not just get stuck. It's not just about sitting down and wait until this emotions goes over, which will happen. It takes, I think, about 20 minutes to biologically for all the hormones that started the emotions in the first place to just calm down. So yeah, after 20 minutes of doing nothing, we want to go feel more at peace. Now, with this situation, these orange cards that you see there, they are called emotional stepping stones. And they are basically based on 7 cards, and 5 of them are the most common grief emotions. So emotional logic says that if you feel unpleasant about anything, really, that there are losses involved in that process. So something you are afraid of losing. Now, in my case, and in this story that I'm going to show is, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had planned a workshop online on Zoom, the 3rd edition of the same workshop, a free workshop, and I had 5 people signed up. So I had everything prepared and sat down at my computer, turned Zoom on, and had, waited. And nothing happened. Nobody turned up. So initially, there's shock. Nobody turned up. So this is kind of the first card in this kind of card pattern, shock. Like, wow, okay. So then denial. Well, maybe the people are a bit late, so let's wait. So I try to just not care about the situation, just think like, oh, maybe it moves forward. And the next step was like feeling guilty. Did I actually send the link to the people? Did I make sure that I reminded everybody? So things were like, so I started checking everything. I started going through. Did I email everybody? Did the email actually go out? So is it in my sent folder, not just in my outbox, and things like this? So I started just checking around, and found like, no, everything was fine. So that was kind of stage of bargaining, where I tried to resolve the situation. I tried to find a way out of this, but then I found that everything was okay. And I fell into kind of a place of depression. And I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm just feeling this kind of feeling of empty, down, this kind of place where you just feel like, oh, and you just don't have the energy to go up. That kind of depression. So I'm not talking about the clinical diagnosed part of the depression. So after that, I basically sat down and started taking these cards, and I laid this pattern. So I told myself the story again. So what just happened? So I fell from shock to denial to guilt to bargain and to depression. Now we also use a different set of cards that are green. We call them the feeling cards. And they give us a little bit more depth, because what you see here in these orange cards is an emotional pattern. Okay, it is a pattern how I processed emotionally that very situation. The beautiful thing on those cards is now it's visible. It's not just here or here. It's not just going on inside me. Actually, I could transfer with those cards the thing and put it on top front of me. Now, I used also the green cards because they give us a little bit more insight about how we feel in all those stages. And you can already see like there's suddenly a lot going on. So it looks like a bomb. It's like, wow, what is this? All these feelings and all this kind of going around and around. Now, the beautiful thing is that you can actually see things in those cards. You can learn to interpret a card pattern like that. And I'm going to just, show you a really cool little tool that we have here on this online tool. I can basically click on each of the cards, on the orange ones, and it shows me the associated feelings with those cards. So shock, the feelings of shock are numb, anxious, stunned, and panicky. So, the funny thing is, and I hope you can already see what happened here. The shock stepping stone card, where I felt shock, experienced shock, but for some reason I put all the feelings associated with shocks at the very end around depression. So it's like, oh wow, what happened? What is happening here? Something is really going on there. And that is basically showing me something. At the end of my emotional journey through this day, or through this moment, I ended up still being in shock and depressed at the same time. Now, we call, when these emotions get mixed up, we call that emotional whirlpools. And a whirlpool of shock and depression is when you feel in fatigue. You really have no energy. It's like it's almost this kind of place of giving up. It's just like, yeah, fatigue, emotional fatigue. You just don't want to go forward. You don't want to do anything anymore. It's just giving up. And actually, that's how I felt. I felt like, oh, it's no point. It's just, why did I do this? Why did I prepare this? And for me, the whole day, the workshop was planned 9 a.m. in the morning. So for me, the whole day was wasted already. That's how it felt, and I could already see myself, not doing anything productive for the rest of the day just because of that disappointment. Now, because I can use those cards and make this visible to me, this is kind of where it became very interesting for me, because, I could recognize, okay, here's something deeper going on. The other thing, if I press the depression card, you can see like hopeless, and pointless. Actually, they are in the right place. They are where I felt depression or guilt. There is, most of the guilt is around guilt. So there was quite clarity around that. Now, how do you move forward from this kind of place? How do we kind of now get this whirlpool of, depression and shock opened up? What is actually happening here? Now, I said just earlier, emotional logic is actually all about grieving constructively. So not just to grieve and just be disappointed and just be feeling this, but actually use it to move forward, to constructively move into a better place of yourself and creating a better future. Now, to do that is, we teach people to create what we call a loss reaction sheet. We give people the question after laying these cards, okay, what have you lost? Now I'm going to show you like my little loss reaction sheet. So this is the loss reaction sheet that I filled in as part of this journey. Now you can already see at the start, opportunity to deliver a workshop. That was the major loss. This was the major thing that really kind of kicked me off. But as you can see on this list, in this moment of feeling stuck, there's a lot more losses behind. And this is the fascinating thing of emotional logic and emotional intelligence to move forward. So I lost, for instance, time that I waited to check things, and also the time, to just get to the point to recover from this place. I lost confidence in my service. Now, this is something, this was like, wow, yeah, I'm actually feeling, I'm not sure if what I'm trying to offer is really good. I lost confidence in my marketing skills. So hey, did I something wrong? I mean, I know I'm not a marketer. I'm not perfect in this kind of stuff, but like, yeah, let me down again. I can't do this. I didn't have the money to just spend, and it's a free workshop, so I didn't really want to spend any money on marketing. It's like, but yeah, it just let me off again. It's like, oh no. And then, my confidence that people would like to work with me. So it became personal, where I lose confidence that people like you actually say like, oh, I would love to work with this guy. I had the fear of losing my business. This is a startup. ISAP Training is a startup, and I felt like, yeah, nobody really needs this, and it's probably never going to happen. And that kind of feeling came with this, So I had fear of losing my business. My business is not lost, but I had the fear of losing it, and that's part of this. Grieving starts not just when you lost something. Grieving starts when you are afraid of losing something. Now then, my dream. Now, that is something that has happened before. And I told you in the beginning a bit more about my story, that in 1989, I lost my career plan. I had a 30-year career plan mapped out, confirmed in front of me. And overnight, it just, boom, disappeared. Possible income, possible leads. Those are the things that I lost in this process when we look at this card pattern. So coming from, from this place where it looks so chaotic, and you think like, oh, wow, how do we get out of this? But you can already see like, actually, there was so much involved in this process that, wow, now I can see clearly, or clearer, why am I feeling what I'm feeling? Why am I feeling so stuck, so in fatigue? And it's just like, wow. Now the next step of emotional logic is to identify one loss, just one, okay? One loss, just one of those losses in the list that I am confident I can take action on. So I looked through my list. Now, I was quite aware of my story, okay? And I'm quite aware that my dream, my business, these two things are more or less one, and they're both related to my previous experience as a 15-year-old. The other thing you can see here, these card patterns, you can see that I didn't feel all the emotions in each of the losses. So all the emotions that I see in the pattern, they are all the emotions that I felt. But if it comes to losses, I can actually identify already that I don't feel all of them for all of the things that I could identify I lost. Now, as I said, like, the idea is to find one to move forward. Now, I identify myself the business one. Number one, it's not lost yet. Okay, the business is not gone. It's just a fear. Not just a fear, but it's a fear. But number two, my dream one, which is for me kind of very closely connected, was for me like, oh, wait a minute. That reminds me of my own story. It reminds me of my past. It reminds me of what has actually happened about 31 years ago. So what happened there was I could suddenly clarify and put this into a point of reasoning. And I was able to do a few things here. And I love moving those cards around. Okay, so not many people do this in coaching sessions, but I love moving those cards around simply because it helps me to see how I develop. So what I basically did was I identified that the loss of my business, or the fear of loss of my business, and the loss of my dream are connected to an old story of my life. And that happens to all of us. Things that just drag us down, when we rethink them, it can happen that we just feel again. Now, I have worked through this a lot. I found peace about losing my dream. I found peace about the time of the fall of the Berlin Wall and what it all just took apart in my life. I have completely found peace about that. And I call these moments, my trauma demons, so this place of shock and depression in and around my business, I call these feelings my trauma demons when I can connect them to this. So what I did was I added another card to my pattern, which is acceptance. Now, we don't talk about acceptance in a sense of denial. Most people think like acceptance means like either acknowledging a situation and it's like, yeah, I have to acknowledge it, or they actually feel more like they don't want to deal with it. They just want to accept it and just get it out of the way. While acceptance here really means to peacefully let go, to peacefully be at peace with leaving it behind. And that's basically what I did. I connected for myself because I knew where it came from, my feelings around my business and my dream. And I said, like, wait a minute, this is an old emotional pattern that just comes up here again. And I'm just deciding proactively to peacefully let it go, because I don't actually have to deal with my 30-year past with my past again. I've done that many times. Okay. So what basically happened to me emotionally here is like, I could just move all these cards away. And suddenly it's like, suddenly I felt much better. Even the whole feeling of depression just suddenly lifted, because I could see, wow, yes, this is an old stuff that has come up again. And I reconciled myself with my life, and I don't have to live in those old fears anymore. I can move forward from here. And I can tell you, after this session, after I'd done this, it's like, I felt so light. Okay, I didn't deal with the whole situation. I just dealt with this one area, and I was like, and you can see, like, in my loss, sheet, you can see my dream, my business, the fear of having no possible income or no leads, my whole confidence in myself and my business, all these things are suddenly connected to each other. They're like, and the pattern dissolves itself. And that is basically how emotional logic can help us personally to just move forward. Cool. Okay, that's me.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's really good to see the whole process kind of from start to finish with something that was quite a personal thing to talk about. I think, especially in business, a lot of people don't talk about the down days or when things go wrong or how it affects them. But it happens to most of us on a daily basis, doesn't it? We feel disappointed, sort of, when we've rung someone up and they don't want to take our services, or they've just instructed us, or the way that you'd hope things were going to happen didn't happen. Yeah. I had a bit of an issue just beforehand with my technology. So I've just moved house. I was set up in my conservatory, and then the Wi-Fi decided to be all silly. So I'm stuck in my dark kitchen. So it happens, doesn't it? But again, it's that fear and it's that shock, and it's like, I've got to deal with it. But I said, yeah, you can do it from the smallest little thing, isn't it? And actually, sometimes it's those repeating patterns that, unless we kind of deal with it and become more consciously aware of what's happening in our own lives and our feelings and how they affect us, I think they're just going to keep rolling forward, aren't they, from that point of view? But,
exactly, and that's why it's so important. And again, it grew me in that moment, because again, I had another place of being aware of an emotional pattern that kept limiting me for 30 years, unaware. Now I'm aware. I can actually proactively just step on it and just say, like, you know what? No, it's over. That's the past. It's done. It was there. I have undocked the value of it. I've taken so much time to just create my life story and things like this. I don't have to go back to those old fears. But we do this all the time, and that's why it's so powerful to recognize them in the first place.
Definitely, because I think obviously, yeah, if we stay stuck in the past, obviously we're not going to be able to move forward. But you certainly need to do that inner work, isn't it, and work on what's caused those issues in the past to give you that freedom then to move forward as well, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's really great. You're all right if I stop the screen share now?
Yes, we can stop sharing.
All done. We'll get our big faces back on again. There we go. Happy days. Lovely. Oh no, it's fantastic, and it's really refreshing to hear people talk about how disappointment can kind of really hit all those chords, isn't it? Because it's not just disappointment; it is the anger, it is the shock, it is all of those kind of innate feelings, and we all have them. And there's nothing to be afraid of that. It's just how we deal with it, I think, from that point of view.
Yeah.
And how discuss it, learn, grow, and move on, isn't it? So, really useful techniques. And I said, obviously, when you do them, obviously doing it digitally was quite interesting, because when I went through the process, we had little cards on the desk type thing, so it was quite kind of interactive. And I think, there they are. Exciting. And it's got on the back of the cards. Can you show just the back of the cards, obviously? Because again, there were some words that actually I didn't really know what they actually meant.
Yeah, I can show one, just let's go through one. So shock, as I said in the beginning, every emotion has a useful purpose. And that's why they're not negative. So like shock. So the first thing is I need to recognize loss. So if I feel shocked, what it tells me is like, hey, you're losing something, or you have lost something. Deal with it. It means that I'm doubting my resources, so I'm not resourceful enough to prevent the loss. So something is really happening and I need to do something. Now, the useful purpose of shock is stop what you're doing, find a safe place, and review your resources. And that's basically what I did when I did the card pattern. I found myself a quiet place. Fortunately, it was a Wednesday, so my wife and my son had a Zoom call with friends from a home education group. And so I could just quickly disappear in another room. So I just found a quiet, safe place and just did this whole thing with myself. And that's what I did, counting my resources, looking at my resources by looking at the losses that are happening, and, and creating a resource for me to move forward. And that's so powerful. Another one is kind of, I didn't put the card in, but anger is one of the most misunderstood emotions in that we have in our society. Like anger is so negatively painted in our society, but it means I need to prevent loss. So there is a loss happening, and there's an energy that tells me stop it. It means that I must stop. It must stop happening, or I must stop this from happening and prevent it again. Our useful purpose is it gives me the energy to take action outside the world and change something there. Now, where the mix-up comes from is that we call the behavior of aggression angry. And that's something completely different. It's not the feeling of anger, of adrenaline to take action and do something. If somebody wants to take my wallet and I'm feeling like, oh, this guy might take my wallet, there's an anger coming up. If I deal with it, I just take the wallet off my jacket and just put it on my lap to make sure the guy can't take it out of my jacket. It's just an example. So anger in that case is good. But if it comes to really relationally dealing with things, if I use it aggressively, it creates more losses. And that's basically what we try to teach is, bargaining, this one, has is also useful purpose is the energy to take risks, to deal with situations and other people in new ways. And the idea of bargaining is we have bargaining styles. There's 3 bargaining styles: aggressive, passive, and assertive. Now, passive and aggressive bargaining have both a big disadvantage. They are not relational, and therefore they destroy relationships, which basically means you have, in the end, lost even more and probably more significant things than you initially did. And that's why we try to teach people, the anger is good. Don't ignore the anger. Don't push it away. it has a useful purpose. It's important to understand it and to identify why are you angry, but don't let this anger turn into aggressive bargaining, but learn to find a way of assertive bargaining where you build relationships in the process.
I think assertive bargaining is definitely something. I mean, I've been learning with my son and things like that, obviously with children, and teaching them ways to kind of be able to let that steam off and understand why they're feeling that way, and kind of, like you said in the, obviously on the title about anxiety, I think obviously so many people are feeling severe anxiety at the moment, and having not just the mental thoughts of it, but also the physical kind of heart palpitations and sweaty palms, and kind of the how it actually comes out in your body as well, and kind of understanding, I think, when you bring it down to a slower kind of way, and actually working with the cards, either yourself or with somebody else that's trained to run through it once you get into that pattern. But actually, it's a very calming process, because you've got to kind of be in a really safe place to actually sit there and just logically and calmly sort it out, isn't it? Because I think, when you come with aggression, it just never ends in a happy place.
Yeah, and you made a good point. Emotions we feel physically. So emotions are actually physical states. They are not feelings. Feelings and emotions, they are in our society mixed up. They're almost used interchangeable, but they're two different things. So emotions are physical states. So shock, for instance, is sweaty palms, or other people like me, it kind of gets cramps in my tummy, or my face completely freezes and I just freeze, And to recognize this is so important. If you learn to recognize and become aware of your own body in this process, and like, oh, wait a minute, something is happening. You don't even feel it yet, It's like feelings is the communication to your brain that then tells you something is happening in your body. So emotion is always first. Feeling is second, But if you learn to be more aware of your physical states, you can recognize, oh, anger is coming up, don't go aggressive. But this is a beautiful thing.
That kind of instinct, isn't it? And I think actually, the more and more they kind of learn about human physiology and the way that our bodies actually work, our brain doesn't, as I said, it's the reactions from our heart and our guts first before it even gets to the brain, isn't it? And I think actually recognizing the early warning signs and kind of understanding how to control it perhaps a little bit better. Certainly be good, isn't it? And I think obviously we talked previously in one of our members meetings about obviously how to deal with conflict in a business environment, isn't it? And sometimes actually taking yourself out of that business environment and just going to get into fresh air and calming yourself down can be really, really proactive. And I think actually being able to be in our own homes and being able to communicate in this way feels a lot more comfortable for a lot of people, because actually stuck in a massive office with lots of people, lots of emotions, lots of chaos going around can be quite overwhelming for a lot of people. So embracing the technology certainly is working for other people from that point of view. But we're going to have to wrap up in a second. So Sven, just tell us how people can get in touch with you, what kind of services you offer, because I know you do kind of one-to-ones, but also you're looking for kind of bigger businesses where you can come in and kind of do teachings to the whole staff as well. So let everyone know how they can get in touch with you on that.
So the easiest way is basically go through my website, www.isap.eu, and you can like my Facebook page. But that's probably the best way, because you can also learn a little bit more about this. What I want to do and help doing is, I found one-to-one. First of all, I would love to do one-to-one coaching sessions. They're usually 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 sessions for you to get deeply into the process. We call this spiral learning. So the first time you get an overview and you have the first time taking action. The second time we meet, we're going to go through the situation again, but we try to, build a deeper understanding of emotional logic, because in the end, the idea is you can use it without me. So it is really giving you a life skill that is so transferable into so many areas. I mean, it transformed my family, it transformed my marriage, it transformed me. So So that's one thing, okay, and I want to give away one, okay. So for everybody who kind of goes to my website and signs up for my newsletter today, or not just today, but over the next few days, if you sign up for my newsletter on my website, then you can win 2 free sessions. Okay, I will give you 2 free emotional logic sessions. We can do this online on Zoom because there is an online tool that we can use. And I would love to do this and just take somebody through. The other thing is, the problem we see in businesses right now is that the emotional pressure of taking emotional responsibility on leaders becomes actually unbearable, and they have to be careful that they don't become therapists or counselors. Now, this is a coaching model that teaches people to deal with their own stuff. Now, we can teach this to a whole group of people. So I would love to just teach it to whole workforces. So in 3 90-minute sessions in a workshop online, where we kind of use some made up scenarios, but people learn step by step how to use the cards and all the other resources. There are basically some diagrams that basically helps you to interpret your own card pattern and move forward from there. The advantage of doing this to actually teach a whole company with this is that you as a leader can give responsibility of that emotional point to staff members, because they can actually, if you identify a few people, they can do it with each other. So it takes pressure off you as a leader who has to do it all, and actually it brings people closer together because they deal with each other, they deal positively with each other. It's not just like, oh, we're all in the same boat. No, suddenly language changes. They're like, hey, come on, let's have an emotional logic session and move forward and turn this into something positive. If you have this kind of vibe in your team, then innovation could just bang, and it will bring more belonging. It will help people to go through this crazy transition change. And one of the things that people keep telling me when I'm sharing about emotional logic and the concept, people say like, I could do this with my children. I could do this with my family. Yes, exactly. Just imagine your whole workforce really grasping things like this, taking this into their families, turning their family struggles into peace and positivity and and personal growth. And now you have a workforce that just comes to work, but for them, life is peaceful here and there. And that's why it is so powerful. So these are the 2 things I really want to focus on: helping your workforce with a workshop. We can have up to 30 people. It's just £1,500 for COVID-affected companies. So we can up to 30 people. If your business is too small and somebody else who might be interested, let's combine this. Let's make the room full with 30 people and you just share the cost. We can make this happen. And then one-to-one coaching. If you're struggling, if you feel like you're going around emotionally, please just message me, and then we're going to make something happen.
That's fantastic. Lovely. That's a really nice offer. So if anyone does want to sign up for Sven's newsletter, that'd be really great. If you afterwards, when we put this live into the group, if you could just pop the links and stuff below, Sven, so that people can find that easily. As I said, we do share the videos on YouTube afterwards, so I'll send you a link so that you can share it and see your database of network as well. So thank you ever so much for coming along today. It's been a real pleasure.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was awesome.
Deeper with emotional logic and how it can help us. So thank you so much. Fantastic. Okay, so we're just going to close up now. So Sven's one of our founding members at Ambition Growth Network. He's been there right from the start, and always a valuable member to the team. So it's really great to have someone on board who kind of deals with emotions, deals with conflict resolutions, and as I said, a real great team player. So do get on to his website. Eyes up, 2 sessions with him. If anybody does have any questions, as I said, just post them below, and I'm sure Sven will come back to you on that. So thank you ever so much for tuning in. Just a quick one before we go. Obviously, we are going to be launching our app next month now. If anybody is interested in joining up to Ambition Growth Network, you can become a member. I've just popped at the bottom of the screen there our details. So it's ambitiongrowthnetwork.co.uk/membership. So if you want to pop along there, it is £30 plus VAT per month. We have lots of regular meetings for our members. We have spotlights, we have accountability, and we've got our fantastic app coming up shortly. So do come along and have a look. If you are interested, get in touch, just drop us a quick message and we'll be more than happy to speak to you. So thank you so much, guys. Nice to see you. Take care. Bye.